Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I woke up to a text message from a friend from college. And me and this friend, we talk pretty regularly. We talk mainly about the financial markets is where our discussions usually fall. But today he sent me an article from a publication that I'm not really familiar with called the Morning Star. And now I guess the Morning Star is a socialist publication in England, and it doesn't have a huge circulation, a circulation of about 10,000. But I guess the paper's been around since like the 1930s, and it started off as a communist outlet, but I guess now it's a quote-unquote socialist paper. Anyway, none of that really matters to me at this point. Like I've said a million times in this case, I don't care about politics when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. I have zero care in the world about someone's political bent when it comes to this case. If you're interested in seeing Ghislaine Maxwell go to prison, if you're interested in seeing justice for the survivors, if you're interested in seeing these trafficking rings being destroyed, then you're my people. I don't care how you vote. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care how you vote on the budget. I don't care if you believe that, everything should be nationalized. I don't care about any of that when we're talking about this case. That's how important it is for this case to be brought to a conclusion. All right, it doesn't matter what your political lean is here, folks. I've really tried to stress this on this podcast, and there was a time where I was a political hack as well. There was a time where I carried water as well, and that time was right after the war in Iraq. I was so enraged by what occurred on 9/11 that I was led by my nose by deceitful politicians, namely the Bush administration. And I was a complete partisan at that point. All I cared about was partisan politics and carrying water and tribalism and all of that jazz. But as I got older and I've been able to reevaluate my decision making and reevaluate the information that was provided to me, I understood very quickly that I was being lied to, and they were gaslighting me, and that will never happen to me again. So I go into every single situation with my eyes wide open, and I don't go into a situation as a member of a political party anymore. I go into every situation that I'm researching or covering as a journalist first and as an American citizen second, meaning of course I'm an American citizen and I love my country, etc., but I'm not going to gloss anything over to make the country look better or whatever party I'm affiliated with politically to look better. I'm never going to do that. That's one thing you guys can count on from me. I am not going to bend politically here on this podcast. It's never going to happen because we know, if you're following this case, you know that there is plenty of scumbaggery to go around in this government. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or an independent or whatever you call yourself, all right? If you look at our government specifically in the United States and you look at it and you're proud of it at this point, well, I don't know what to tell you. That's a problem with you. That sounds like a you problem. Because there's not much to be proud of, folks. All right? There is not much to be proud of. And that goes for all Western governments. And we're seeing them get exposed right now before our very eyes. We're watching them squabble with each other still. We're watching them act foolish. And it's to the great detriment to the rest of us for these idiots not to have their act together. So what I do here on this podcast for sure is I cancel all partisanship, all sorts of tribalism, all of it. And we're just here as people who are interested in justice in the Jeffrey Epstein case. And that's what I ask all of you, all of my listeners, to do while we're here on this podcast, while we're searching for truth in this case. Just because somebody's a Republican or somebody's a socialist or somebody's a communist or somebody is insert whatever political bend here, that doesn't matter right now. Suspend all of that. When it comes to this case, we could use all the allies we can get. And if you're interested in justice for these survivors, like I said earlier, you are my people. So with that said, we're going to read this article from Peter Frost, and the article is from the Morning Star. This article was produced on March 20th. Just when we thought Prince Andrew had run out of lies, we hear that despite assurances that he would be happy to give an interview to criminal investigation authorities on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the FBI tells us that Andrew has given them zero cooperation following requests for an interview about his close friendship with the convicted pedophile. And again, folks, I just want to point out, everybody, doesn't matter what your political leaning is, we're all disgusted by this. All you have to do is look at the commonality between the Bernie Sanders supporters, a populist on the left, and Trump supporters, a populist on the right, how they come and meet in the middle when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, when it comes to neither side believing the story. See, there's places where we can find common ground, folks, politically, and we need to do more of that. And in this case, especially. So when I see people carrying water in this case, or people acting like, say, Alan Dershowitz has, he's a beyond reproach because he's one of Trump's guys now, it makes me ill. And I always call it out when I see it because it does the case no good. For people to be biased in this case and for people to try and score political points in this case, it serves no one. It serves no one, and it certainly does not serve the survivors. And remember, that's the most important part of this case, folks. We can't lose sight on what's important. We can't start bickering. We can't worry about, petty political infighting when it comes to something as important as chasing justice for these gals. Prince Andrew has been keeping his head down generally. Just to be clear, this isn't the same thing as his favorite face-down massage. Some 230 charities and universities of which he was patron or similar have sacked him or hinted they want nothing more to do with him. His mother, the Queen, it seems, is pleased about this. She hopes it may protect the monarchy from further embarrassment and humiliation. And again, folks, how many times have I said that? It's almost like the Chinese government. If you're familiar with China, you understand that saving face, being, the big man on campus, is one of the most important currencies in China. And the same goes with all of these elites. Face is such a huge bit of currency for them. The most important thing for the Queen, it's not her son, it's not the survivors, it's that the monarchy survives and that the monarchy has a pretty face for the public to see. Andrew and his ex-wife Sarah Fergie Ferguson, with whom he still lives, are a bit disappointed. Many of the charities provided the prince, or both of them, with all expenses paid visits to many exotic locations at home and abroad. Also, each organization held a formal royal lunch or dinner each year, providing 2/3 of the couple's annual nosh. Well, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice that the prince was flying around to all of these exotic locations with Fergie, and who else knows? Who knows who else was part of the entourage? But he was flying to all of these exotic locations to do what? Well, he was on the English taxpayers' dime. What was he doing on these locations? We know he was visiting Nygaard. We know he visited Epstein. We know he was visiting arms dealers. What else was he up to? I want the whole entire house of cards to come tumbling down, and I want the Prince of Lies questioned. The pair will get no more free tickets to English National Ballet and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, both of which had him as a patron. Aw, poor baby. He's going to have to pay to go to get entertained. He's not going to be able to go to the orchestra for free anymore. Wah! Meanwhile, this son of a bitch took part in ruining Virginia Roberts' life. Okay? Sorry if I don't have any empathy because he can't go to the opera. Charities involved with young children were quick to realize his connection with a convicted pedophile, as well as accusations made about his own behavior with underage girls, could be embarrassing to say the least. Out he went. And I like this, how Mr. Frost here in the article is calling him what he is, a pedophile. A convicted pedophile, pulling no punches, hitting him right in the jaw. That's exactly how this man should be labeled, okay? Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile, not a financier, not a smooth-talking Manhattan socialite, or whatever the F you want to call him. Pedophile, all right? And I commend Mr. Frost here for doing that. He's pulling no punches in this article, folks, and that's why I'm reading it to you. It seems even the Queen pulled the plug on a planned 60th birthday party for Andrew in February. Despite Andrew being her favorite child, the big palace The Big Palace Bash was downsized to a discreet family gathering. And we covered that, remember? They had to send out a second wave of invitations even to the B team to fill out the guest roster. Because nobody wants to associate with this pedophile's friend anymore, okay? Nobody wants to hang out with a prince who hangs out with a perv. Shout out to the girls from that podcast, by the way, The Prince and the Perv. If you haven't listened to that, make sure you download it. The gals from Australia going hard in the paint on a regular basis to get justice in this case. And to all of my listeners, I implore you to support them. The prince appears to be trying to hang on to his role with what was called Pitch at Palace, a scheme for young entrepreneurs rather like Dragon's Den, with Prince Andy as chief dragon. In the real TV show, the dragons use their own money, but Andy is smarter or greedier than that. He got high-profile business sponsors like Barclays, the accountancy firm KMPG, the Standard Chartered Bank, and the telecoms company Immersat to put up the cash. Now that's interesting, huh? Barclays. Who's in charge of Barclays? Our good friend Jess Staley. You think that there's no connection between Jess Staley and Prince Andrew? Think again, folks. We know that Jess Staley and Jeffrey Epstein were thick as thieves, no pun intended, and we know how close Andrew was to Epstein and Maxwell. Do you really believe that Jess Staley was not in his atmosphere? Do you really believe that Jess Staley and Prince Andrew had no contact? What's Barclays' involvement in this? Can we follow the money? Is there an accountant that's going to chase this down? A forensic accountant that's going to chase all of this money down at any point? Or are we left to just speculate? Happily, all of them have now pulled out over the prince's recent behavior. Buckingham Palace issued a statement saying, "The Duke will continue to work on what has been renamed Pitch and will look at how he takes this forward outside of his public duties and outside of Buckingham Palace. We recognize there will be a period of time while this transition takes place." Nope, there should be no transition. The prince should have no projects he's working on. He should be, you know how everyone's in lockdown or quarantine right now? He should be quarantined underneath Buckingham Palace. Because nobody wants to see his face. Nobody wants to hear his fat yap. Nobody wants to listen to his lies. The man's a bullshit artist. Nobody cares about you, Prince Andrew, the Prince of Lies. Nobody believes you. Meanwhile, Parliament has launched an investigation into the way the scheme was run as a private company. That's interesting as well. Now, here's the thing. It's gonna come down to the sentiment in the House of Commons and the House of Lords for England. Are they happy with the monarchy, or do they want to stir some shit up? If they want to stir some shit up, this is definitely a way to do it. Use Prince Andrew as the predicate and really go hard in the paint. Now, with the whole entire pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, I don't know how much of that we'll see right now, but it's definitely there. We can see the cracks forming in the monarchy, and we can see that the monarchy is losing its grip on power, folks. Another charity initiative set up by the prince to help young women trafficked for sex in India has been embroiled in allegations of mistreatment. How many times do we see these rich people who are accused of these disgusting crimes, these disgusting behaviors, that we see that they're involved in some sort of charity for children? It's obscene. And it makes one wonder, the cynic in me wonder, why are all these people so concerned having charitable ties to these kind of foundations? Do they want unfettered access to these children? I know it's disgusting to think about, folks, and it's beyond the pale, but we have to consider everything in this case. We're dealing with very incredibly evil people, so we have to consider everything, and we can't discount anything or put anything on the back burner without investigating it. But the question I have for all of you is this: why do all of these people, take a look at everybody we've talked about, why do all of them have charities that have to do with children? It's scary to think about, but it's something that needs to be discussed. Andrew started Key to Freedom in May 2012, soon after he was pictured walking with Epstein in Central Park, New York, following the pedophile billionaire's release from prison. Again, the author, Mr. Frost, in this article, doing the Lord's work here. Keeps calling him a pedophile, driving the point home, hammering it home. Every article should do that, and it's the reason why I always change what they say in the articles to calling him a pedophile, because that's what he was. And that point needs to be driven home to people. He wasn't just a sex offender. He wasn't a 19-year-old guy who had a tiz with a 16 or 17-year-old girl, okay? There's no gray area here. He was a pedophile, straight up pedophile, and that's what he should be called. And I commend Mr. Frost for doing it. In every single sentence he uses Jeffrey Epstein's name pretty much. He claimed his new charity would financially empower vulnerable young women in India by selling their handmade fashion items in Britain through retailers including Topshop and the Buckingham Palace website. However, the initiative soon fell into financial decline and is now largely inactive, despite being highlighted by the prince and his family as a success story throughout the scandal of his association with Epstein. God, another cover story. You really think he cares about the girls in India? The poor, poor girls in India? Forget about even going into that topic. We could be here all day with the destitution in India and how poor some of the areas are. And do you think Prince Andrew really gave a shit about those girls? Or was it more of a cover, more of a way to provide balm and put some salve on his wounds, his public wounds, to make his image look better, to prop it up some more? You're not going to convince me that Prince Andrew, the Prince of Lies, the Prince of Punk Asses, cares about young girls in India. He doesn't care about nothing but himself and consolidating his power and enriching himself. That's what he cares about. In fact, exactly when the Prince's team was setting up the Key to Freedom project, its partner charity in India, the Women's Interlink Foundation, which manages care homes for vulnerable children and young women, was being investigated by the Indian authorities. 10 girls aged between 12 and 15 had run away from home, one of the WIF's 2 homes for trafficked and orphaned girls, alleging that they were beaten by staff and generally mistreated. We see this all of the time. And look, folks, I don't have any evidence of what I'm about to say right now. This is all conjecture on my part, okay? But you see these kinds of homes, and you see people like Prince Andrew involved in them, and then you hear about all of these girls that go missing, and then there's never any reports on what happened to these girls, never any follow-up. Did you find them? Did their parents find them? Did they find their way back home? But no, we know the disgusting and sad reality. We know that I'd say a good majority, 90% of these girls that go missing from homes like this end up in sex trafficking rings, and Lord knows what happens to them after that. There's a lot of scary stuff, folks, that we haven't even gotten into on this podcast. Things that are really based in conjecture and things that are really all speculation because there's no evidence. But my question to you, the listeners of this podcast, is this. All of these unnamed girls that we've talked about, the girls involved in orgies that were never named, etc., what happened to them? Where are they? I know there's nights where I lay in bed and I can't even fall asleep while I'm thinking about the fate of these girls. And to read this article here about what was going on in India as well, these girls disappear and they could be running away. We know that. They could just get lost in the sauce in society. That's possible as well. But we also know that trafficking rings love this sort of thing. They love girls like this with no people to report them missing, no one to come looking for them, from broken homes. And we've seen the Epstein criminal enterprise use this over and over and over again to groom these young girls. And now we know places like India, this sort of thing is rampant. We know that girls are abused in India a lot, rapes, etc. So this would be the perfect place for trafficking knuckleheads to set up shop, right? Now, again, I'm not saying that's what Andrew was doing here. I don't know that for a fact. But what I can tell you is this. Looking at it from the outside, at the big picture, it doesn't look good for people like Andrew and his like, right? These people are involved in trafficking. They're involved with Jeffrey Epstein already. And now we're talking about a place over in India that Andrew is involved in that is under investigation by the Indian authorities. Things have never went right there. Hardly funded. It's the same old story, folks. It's the same old story. And it just adds more meat to the bone about this guy being a liar and a scumbag and somebody that's not honorable and somebody that you can't trust. WIF admits it did not tell the prince about the investigation, which it says cleared the care home. but it refused to publish the official police report or its own internal report. WIF's founder, Aloka Mitra, dismissed the young women's complaints, saying, "Some of them said we did not get the correct kind of chapatis." I don't even know what any of that means. Clearly, Prince Andrew and his team failed to conduct due diligence on his partner Charity, as indeed they did with Key to Freedom, that also faces criticism that it gave false hope of financial security to the women making the hand-printed silk scarves which were sold online at the Royal Collection Shop. Well, isn't that nice? Not only is he involved in, Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring and a girl's home and, all sorts of stuff like that. Well, it's basically a sweatshop also for the royal collection. Isn't that nice? Just what the monarchy needs, huh? More slaves. They didn't have their taste of that. They didn't have enough of that when they controlled India. The Duke's website also claims the initiative has changed the fate of more than 100 vulnerable young women and is still active. But WIF confirms no scarves have been available to buy through retailers for more than 18 months, and only tiny orders for tote bags were placed. These tote bags were given as gifts to guests at Andrew's daughter Princess Eugenie's wedding last year. The young women who made them in India got just $1.50 per bag. One guest at the wedding was Sarajit Mitra, head of the Indian charity. I hope he was served the right kind of chapati. Wow. So these girls working in a sweatshop, over in India, making all of these bags and whatnot, made these bags that were hardly sold, and the totes were given out by the prince at Eugenie's wedding last year. Oh, talk about being a cheapwad, huh? You have your sweatshop make these tote bags, and that you give them out at Eugenie's wedding? Holy cow. What a nightmare. What an absolute nightmare this whole royal family is. Mitra, WIF's chief operating officer and son of the founder, has said that orders from Topshop declined after 2013 and stopped abruptly in June 2018 without any explanation from the prince or his team, which he describes as rude. Of course they're rude. They look down on you. You're the servants. You're Indians. You're their house people. You're nobody important to them. The girls over there aren't important to Andrew. All of this was to fix his image. Oh, I'm involved in helping girls over in India. How could I ever do what Virginia Roberts said? I don't sweat even, and I don't even wear the right kit when that happens. And I have this charity over here, plus I was eating pizza that night. It is all absurd, okay? It is all absurd. Despite this, in late August, a royal source close to the prince said he was particularly dismayed that his efforts to help victims of sex trafficking were being overlooked while his connections with Epstein once again hit headlines. Bingo, bango, boombo, folks. What did I just tell you? It is all about image. The only reason he was involved in this is because he knew what he did to Virginia Roberts. He knew that he was guilty of what he did to Virginia Roberts. So this was all to save face. Let me set this up. I'm going to set up this trafficking. This group for girls in India. And then when the dominoes start to fall about me being involved in Epstein's sex trafficking ring and having abused Virginia Roberts, I can point to this as something that protects my character. And we see it time and time again with these people. No longer will we let their charities protect them. Okay, your charitable work, that's all fine and well. And that's great that you donated money. But that is not going to protect you when we come looking. That is not going to protect you when we come a-knocking. That is not going to protect you when we start shaking the trees. Mitra also said the women earned on average up to £150 per year, equivalent to 41 pence a day. WIF took 40% of the price of any scarves they made. Prince Andrew was running a sweatshop, folks, okay? Running a sweatshop and then pointing to that, saying to us, well, what about this? I don't get credit for helping these girls? I can't be involved with Epstein. Look at all the good I've done. Nope, you're involved and you're a liar, okay? Nobody believes you, Prince Andrew. You ready? Nobody believes you in California. They don't believe you in Montana. They do not believe you in Delaware, and they don't believe you in Rhode Island. They don't believe you in New York. They don't believe you in Texas. They don't believe you in Nevada, and they don't believe you in Arizona. They don't believe you in Iceland. They don't believe you in Spain. They don't believe you in Chile, and they do not believe you in Italy. They don't believe you in the UK, and they do not believe you in Siberia. Okay? The polar bears in the great Arctic North don't believe you, and neither do the penguins in Antarctica. Nobody believes you, Prince Andrew. The money from sales is put into accounts for the workers, but it cannot be accessed without permission from Mitra. Reportedly, the women cannot leave the barbed wire compound without guards who accompany them to shops to buy essential items that are not covered by the money the state pays to WIF. Boy, sure sounds like some sort of work camp, huh? They can't leave unless they're under armed guard, etc., etc. And this is how Prince Andrew is helping women? This is what he's pointing to as his great works to help women? Man, you're a piece of shit. How about that? Mitra was given copies of letters written by girls who had lived in the home where they expressed their unhappiness. One letter alleges girls in the home are badly treated, and when the children want to complain, then they are told off and are asked to be quiet about it. I'm sure that's not all that occurs. I'm sure there's a couple of whacks, a couple of punches, a couple of kicks, because these are the forgotten in society, folks. This is what happens to the forgotten amongst us. This is what happens when we lose focus on those who need to be protected. And I'm guilty of it too. I have to be honest with you guys. I have to be completely honest with you folks. I never gave a shit about any of this stuff. I was so caught up in my own pursuit of money making, my own pursuit of empire building, that I didn't give a damn about what was going on around me to those less fortunate. Well, those days are over. Those days are over, folks. I know I was wrong, and I'm trying to make up for it now. I'm trying to do the right thing now. I'm trying to make up for the time spent being selfish now. And that's why I've been here for 165 days straight on this podcast. It's not like I'm making a bunch of dough doing this, folks, all right? If you average what I'm making doing this, I'm making about as much as what these people in the sweatshops make. And for me, it's not about the dough. It's never been about the money for me here. It's about setting right the wrongs. It's about setting right the wrongs in my own life, being so selfish and not focusing on those who needed to be defended. And for that, I am terribly sorry that I was so selfish for so long in my life. And for me, my whole entire perspective has changed because of this Jeffrey Epstein case, because of what I have learned about what is going on around the world, what these women and these children are what they're being subjected to. It has totally changed my whole outlook and turned my whole life upside down. And all I can do now going forward is spend each and every day trying to make sure that I can do what I can do to help people in positions like that, to help people who have been trafficked, to help girls who have been abused by people like Jeffrey Epstein. And that's what I'm going to do day in and day out, folks. Each and every day I'll be here on this podcast and we'll be doing that because we can't be silent anymore. It is time to blow the lid off of all of it. Republican, Democrat, everything in between. This is a call to arms. This is my rallying cry, folks. This is my rallying cry. I feel like Jon Snow in the Battle of the Bastards, standing there alone against a whole charging army with his sword drawn, right? Standing there battling these people. And then just as I'm about to be overtaken, everyone rides up. All of you, my listeners, other content creators, we all ride up together and we charge these people hard. And that's what it needs to be. All of us in a concerted effort, putting the pressure on these scumbags on a regular, daily basis. The British High Commission in India was responsible for introducing the Duke to WIF. One key member of the Prince's team, Amanda Thirsk, his private secretary, was at the center of the Key to Freedom project. Well, we all know that her decision-making is terrible. She's the one that put Andrew in front of Emily Maitlis and let Andrew get blown up like the Hindenburg when it hit the ground. So we know that Amanda Thirsk isn't really somebody that anyone wants working for them at this point. Thirsk was the one who advised the prince to take part in his disastrous BBC Newsnight interview. She no longer works for him. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's unemployed. I am pretty sure that she is unemployed at this point, at least not working with anybody in a high profile position. And if she is, and you're the one who hired her, well, I wonder if you have traumatic brain injuries that you're dealing with, because I would not have this lady working for me, that's for sure. Andy's ex-wife, Fergie, came up with the Key to Freedom name, and Andrew's charitable trust donated £10,000 seed capital. The initiative launched formally in 2013 with an order from Sir Philip Green's Topshop. Just like his refusal to talk about his relationship with Epstein, Andy is also saying nothing about these Indian charities, and nor is Topshop, which was involved with the Key to Freedom project at the same time that top boss Green was himself facing allegations of sexual and racial harassment of staff. Every one of these people, folks, are there any of these rich so-called elites that aren't diddling people, that aren't molesting people, that aren't harassing people? What in the F is wrong with them all? Andy and Fergie's latest scam is to get you and I, the taxpayer, to pay for his other daughter Beatrice's upcoming wedding, just as we did for his daughter Eugenie's £3.5 million bash. Most amazing is that Andrew, disgraced cheat and scam artist, remains the eighth in line to the throne. Do we need any better argument to get rid of the whole steaming shit heap that calls itself the monarchy? Man, look, I'll tell you what, folks. This was a fantastic piece by Peter Frost, and I'll be checking in on the Morning Star from now on to see what else they have to add to our catalog if they're going to be covering Prince Andrew in such a candid manner. Because that's what we need now, folks. We need facts. We need truth. We need right-in-your-face journalism. Because without that, we're never going to get to the bottom of this. We're never going to find out what the truth is. And these vile, disgusting idiots like Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell and Sarah Kellen Vickers and Leslie Groff and Adriana Ross and Jean-Luc Brunel and Nadia Marcinkova and the rest of them are never going to be brought to justice unless we all stand firm and we all hold the line. Because that's what it is, folks. We're in a war. We're in a battle. All right? And, we've had a couple of skirmishes so far. But the real charge hasn't begun yet. The vanguard hasn't even marched yet. And I consider us, you, me, everybody listening out there, we're the vanguard. We're going to be the wedge that smashes into the middle of their formation and busts that shit. And once that happens, once we bust their line and we bust it open nice and good, then everybody else is going to close in from the flanks. And before you know it, folks, they're not going to have anywhere to go, and retreat is not going to be possible. They're going to have to stand and fight. That means stand and answer questions under oath, under subpoena. That's where we're at, folks, right now. That is where we are. Those are the battle lines. They've been drawn. Now, the question I have for you is, are you going to just be a pedestrian here? Are you just going to be a bystander? Are you just going to be a slacktivist who sits on their computer and bitches and moans? Or are you going to do something about it? Are you going to stand up, flip your table over and say, I'm done. No more. I will no longer be part of this. I will no longer be part of this mayhem, of this systematic abuse of people who are not powerful enough to defend themselves. Or are you going to stand up, strap on your sword, and come to the front lines with your fellow fighters for truth and stand there and demand that this all ends? I know where I'll be, folks. You can find me right in the front line. I'm like George Patton. I stand up in the Jeep when tank fire is coming. I stand up during the mortar fire. I run into the storm. That's who I am. When shit gets tough, I bite down on my mouthpiece, I plant my feet, and I start throwing bombs right back at you. Because that's it, folks. That's where we're at. Either we run away from this and we pretend that this isn't happening at the highest levels of government across the continents, or we stand up and we fight back and we tell them no more. I know where I'm at, folks. The question is, where are you? All right, everybody, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. Also, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. I've been a little bit more active on Twitter lately. As you all know, I'm not really a big fan of it. I'm not going to devolve into some subhuman and have arguments with people on Twitter. That's just not how I roll. I don't really see the point in any of that. But what I do is I do use my Twitter to update what's going on the show, what I'm talking about here on the podcast, and, just basic stuff that's going on in my life, pictures from my mountain climbing expeditions, etc., etc. So if you're not following me on Twitter yet, jump on there and check that out as well. All right, everybody, I hope you're all having a good morning, and this is kicking off a big weekend here. I'm going to add a lot of content this weekend. I have nothing better to do. There's no UFC. There's nothing on TV really, binge watching. Besides that, nothing going on. So I'm going to add a lot of content this weekend. I know that most of you around the world are in the same situation at this point. So you know what? All we can do is, stick together, folks. Have faith that this is all going to blow over soon and life is going to return to normal. Now, again, as far as the COVID-19 Wuhan SARS podcast, that's going to crack off on Sunday. And I'm going to, we're going to see. I'm going to see what the interest is in the podcast. If it's something that you're all interested in and I'm getting people are listening, I'll update it every day the same way we do the Jeffrey Epstein show. We'll do a daily drop with the Wuhan SARS coronavirus situation, and we'll break it down. Look, I'm not a medical doctor, right? I'm not going to sit here. I'll never give you medical advice. But what we're going to do is we're going to read between the lines the same way we do in this Epstein case. And if you've been friends with me and you're friends with me on Facebook, you understand that I've been warning about this since January. I've been telling everybody to prepare since January because I knew what was coming down the pipe, folks. When you understand exponential growth and you understand how viruses work and how they're spread, and you understand what the R naught is, and you understand what viral load means, and you understand all of these things, you have a better idea of what's coming down the pipe. And for me, let me be clear, I have no medical training. I didn't go to medical school, nothing like that. But when I was 14, I read the book The Hot Zone. And the book The Hot Zone by Richard Preston deals with level 4 viruses like Ebola, Marburg, Hanta, etc. And ever since I read that book, I've been fascinated by viruses. And even so much to the point that when I was 15, I wanted to become a virologist. So I've been reading books about this sort of thing for a very long time. And there's not very many things where I'll sit here and be like, oh, I know a lot about that. Politics, the Jeffrey Epstein case, sports gambling, and viruses are pretty much the whole entire spectrum of things where I can actually sit here on a podcast and rail for days. And, I'm sure a couple other things, but those are the things where I have vested interests outside of just being a journalist or somebody who creates content. Those are the things that I'm really interested in. So when this whole entire thing started with this virus, I was all over it from the beginning, just sucking up as much information as possible, speaking to my friends in China. And man, it's one of those things where it has to be discussed, right? It has to be something that we talk about because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And that's really going to be my goal. I'm going to try and cut through the bullshit the same way I do here at the Epstein show. And of course, I'll be relying on you, my listeners, once again, to send me articles. And there are so many intelligent people listening to this podcast. The emails I get from people in all walks of life, in all professions, it's amazing. And I consider myself lucky to have the resource that I have, which is you, the audience, to draw from. So any articles that you guys have locally about the coronavirus, same exact thing as with the Epstein show. Send them on in. Send them in. I'll read them. I'll vet them. I'll go through them. And then we'll come on here and we'll discuss it like we always do. Remember, folks, it's all about facts and not fear. This is a serious situation. This is a serious situation with long-term ramifications. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But what I will tell you is this. Please do not panic. We can get through this. And, I'm speaking mainly to my fellow Americans here. when I say that I know the will and the spirit of our country, and I know that when we're faced with great obstacles such as this, the American people mobilize, the private sector mobilizes, and we get to work. And I see it around the world, folks. I see it in every country in the Western world. Everyone's coming together. Everyone's coming together to battle this. Everyone is focused on fighting what is basically a global war against this virus. And if you're one of those people sitting on the fence right now, or if you're one of those people who are, oh, it's just the flu, no, it's just a bad cold, this is uncalled for, etc., please tune into the podcast starting on Sunday, because you are somebody that definitely needs to hear the facts, right? Because you've been lied to. I'll just give you the facts right now. You have been lied to. If you believe that this is just a flu, or this is just a common cold, or that this is no big deal, and this is all some ramped up conspiracy theory to get rid of Trump or to ruin the world's markets, whatever it may be, I hate to tell you, you're wrong. All right? This isn't that. This isn't something like that this time. This isn't some media hoax. This is something that everybody needs to take seriously. And we're going to go a lot more into that on Sunday when we launch the first episode, episode 0. On that episode, I'll introduce myself a little bit, who I am, blah, 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 for those who might not know. And we'll go from there, folks. And we're going to cover the virus in the same no bullshit manner way that I cover the Jeffrey Epstein case. And I hope you all come along for the ride. And I understand if some of you out there just don't want to think about it or deal with it. I get it. And that's cool too. But for those of you who are interested in this Wuhan SARS-CoV-19 outbreak, and who have been sending me emails, and who are interested in, listening to my take on it and what I believe is going on, you're going to get all of that on Sunday. I appreciate all of the emails, and I'm humbled by the fact that so many people are interested in my opinion on this, and interested in me reporting on this. And as somebody who is, chasing journalism now as their career, who's somebody who is focused on content creating, I'm definitely going to do that, because I feel like I have a lot to offer in that area. And if it was a topic where I didn't know anything about it, and I was just another person shooting from their hip, I wouldn't even be talking about it, folks. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not here to bullshit you. I'm not here to, promote any products or get you to sign some subscription. Oh, sign up for my subscription and you could have inside information. That's not what I'm here for, folks. I don't roll like that. If people want to donate to the podcast, it does help out. There's no doubt. I'll take it. I appreciate it. But that's not why your boy is here. I've told you 100,000 times. When I first started this podcast, I figured it would be just my friends listening to it. An easy way to, talk to my 20 or 30 friends who are interested in the case, right? But it's evolved. It's become something that is, getting to the point where it's huge. I'm pushing 500,000 downloads right now. And that is crazy to me, to think that there's 500,000 downloads of this podcast. But here we are. And I promise to do the best that I can to bring you the truth, and to continue to bring you the news in the manner that I deliver it, with my cut through the nonsense approach, no bullshit approach. And what you get is my visceral reaction. There's no written words here. There's no, I'm going to write out my opening statements. I don't do that. This is all off the top of my dome. This is my visceral reactions to all of this. And what I want this to be is an experience for you. Every time you listen to this podcast, I want you to walk away, even if you might not agree with my opinions, I want you to walk away thinking, well, you know what? All right, well, that was at the very least, that was some interesting information. And we know that Bobby isn't sitting here bullshitting us. And that's the most important thing to me, is that I'm honest with you folks about how I feel when it comes to these sort of topics. And the most important thing is that I'm bringing you factual information. And that's what I strive to do. And if at any point, I get something wrong, or I misstate something, please send me an email. Let me know that I'm wrong, because I don't know everything, that's for sure. And every day I wake up and I'm learning something new about the Jeffrey Epstein case or about the Wuhan SARS COVID-19 outbreak. And like I said, I rely on this audience to keep me informed as well, because I'm only one person. This is a one-man operation, and I have a lot going on with the Jeffrey Epstein show, and now with the new podcast, there's a lot on my plate. But that's cool. I am more than willing to be involved in all of that and take it all on, because this is stuff that interests me, and I believe that it's very important that both of these topics are talked about. I think it's very important that especially we don't lose focus of the Jeffrey Epstein case amongst all of this other madness. So don't worry about that. For those of you thinking that the Epstein podcast might suffer or there might be not enough content coming out here, just forget about that. Alleviate those fears. That's never going to occur. The Jeffrey Epstein podcast is my number one focus. This will always take precedent over everything else that I'm working on right now. But with that said, we're going to branch out and we're going to start this other podcast. And look, I hope that all of you jump ship and come over and give it a listen at the very least. Listen to the first episode and see if it's something you dig. And I hope that you're going to let your friends know about it as well, because there's a lot of disinformation out there when it comes to this Wuhan SARS COVID-19 outbreak. And the goal of the podcast is going to be to cut through all of that bullshit, bring you the facts as well as we can report them, and then to mainly keep everybody informed about what's going on, because this isn't something that is going to go away anytime soon, folks. We're looking at a long haul here, okay? We're looking at 3-4 months probably. And even then, if the Spanish flu is any indicator, we had a second and then a third wave of that came ripping through. So we'll get into all of that more. We'll get into the weeds. We'll discuss the Spanish flu. And, you know how I feel about context. We're going to have a lot of context with this Wuhan SARS, coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, podcast. And I hope all of you come along for that ride. All right, everybody. So I will be back later on today with another episode with the Daily Drop as usual. I'm going to try and get a third episode out today, and I've been trying to do that for the last couple of days. But since we've been on lockdown mode, we've been trying to get everything in order as you know, as goes far as like the house cleaning, stuff like that. That way, that's all out of the way, and I just have bunch of time on my hands to sit in my studio here and pump out content. So that's where we're at, folks. I will be back later on tonight with the Daily Drop for sure, maybe a third episode, depending on what's going on around here today. And besides that, I hope that everybody enjoyed the episode, and I hope everybody has as good of a Friday as possible. All right, everybody, until later on, enjoy your day.